In this presentation, we're going to review the product feature OPCExcel.net, which gives you the ability to read and write data from OPC servers into Microsoft Excel. You will want to have OPC System Service version 2.0.0.139 or greater to support this new product feature. You can find that using the Configure application under Help. That's found under the program group OPCSystems.net. If you select Help and Versions, there you can find what version of OPC System Service that you have. You can also check for other updates under the button Check Current Versions. During the setup and installation of OPCSystems.net, you will want to install the typical installation where your OPC server is. And for each remote Excel workbook that you want to implement, simply install the OPCExcel.net product feature. To add data into Microsoft Excel, it's quite easy. From the OPCSystems.net program group, we'll use the OPC Excel Wizard application to set up the formulas. This allows a tag browse system to browse directly to OPC servers and then to specify whether you would like to read or write data. First, let's select the local service, where we have some OPCSystems.net tags and the ability to connect directly to OPC servers using Direct OPC. I'm going to select the ramp signal and the value. There at the bottom we have the formula, which is RTD for real-time data server, and then the various arguments for each of the parameters. You can use this application wizard to set up whether you want to read values, write values, or to set up security in a Microsoft Excel workbook. Let's take the default to read a value. We'll click on the button to copy to clipboard, or you can select the entire formula and use Control-C for copy. Then open the Microsoft Excel workbook that you would like to paste the formula into. Let's use the cell A1. We now have the cell A1 updating from the value from ramp.value. We can take a closer look at that formula. You can use this result value in other calculations right in Microsoft Excel if you'd like to. Let's take a closer inspection at some of the parameters within the formula. And we can actually find these in the application wizard as well under the button called Excel Topics. Let's select that button. There you can see a list of all the parameters that you can use in the real-time data formula. The first parameter is always set to OPC Excel. The second argument is typically used in an RTD server to specify a network node name, but we're going to take advantage of the OPC Systems.net networking, and the network node name will be included in the tag name. So the second parameter is always blank. The third parameter, or what we would call topic 1, is the tag name. So if we go into Microsoft Excel, specify the formula, we see that ramp.value is set as topic 1. The second topic is to either read, write, or set login security. Here we see in this example this topic 2 is set to read. Later we will see how to write to an OPC item. The third topic, when we're reading values, is the default return value when the data quality is bad. Let me specify a tag value that doesn't exist. I'll put in something called rampx. That tag does not exist, so the return value is a question mark. That is the default if this argument is left out blank. Let's put something else in, like the value is bad. We hit return, and that is the value that's returned when the data quality of the tag is bad. If we specify it back to ramp.value, we get the value again. Let's go back to the wizard application, and let's specify to read a timestamp of that value. We'll copy that to the clipboard, paste that into Microsoft Excel. There we get a number that represents a timestamp, so we'll go into Format, Cells, specify that it is a time value or any kind of custom date and time format that you would like. We'll click OK, and now we can see that it's actually a date that's being updated in that cell A2. You can see that topic 2 is specified as read timestamp. Let's return back to the OPC Excel Wizard application and let's set up a write tag. We'll select write OPC output.value. Then under the read write section, I'll specify the write radio button. With the value to write, it can be either a Microsoft Excel cell location or it can be a fixed constant value. First, let's try a fixed constant value with the value of 123. The deadband is the amount that it will compare the value being read versus the value to be written, and if that value is within that range, it won't need to write the value. We also have an optional argument to enable the write function. The default is that it will be enabled to write, and it will basically write anytime that the data source value is different than the destination value. We'll select copy to clipboard. I'll paste that into the Microsoft Excel workbook, and we see that we get some different return values. The first return value that we got was a value of 3, which indicates a bad data quality because it's first adding the item to the subscription. Let's take a look back under the Excel topics to see what the return values are for a write function. If you have disabled the write, you will get a return value of 0. That is if topic 5 was set to 0 or false. A return value of 1 means it is successful in that the data source and the destination are both within the deadband value. A value of 2 returned means that a value is to be written, so it needs to actually write that value, so the write pending is actually occurring at this time. A return value of 3 means that the value is bad quality. 4 means that it cannot convert the value to be written to the tag. And 5 means that it's an unknown data type to be able to typecast, so the opcsystems.net value might be returning some kind of structure element or something that cannot be written to. Now let's go back to Microsoft Excel and specify a cell value as one of the arguments of the value to write. So let's put in the value of 1 in cell B3. Now let's go in and specify topic 3 to be a cell location. So I'll simply put my cursor into that and then specify the cell, and we can see it sets it to B3. These could also be specific named variables in the Microsoft Excel workbook. I'll hit return, and I'll see that I get a return value of 2, that it's writing the value, and now we get a return value of 1, that the value is successful. Let's set up a read for that specific item as well. So I'll go back to the OPC Excel Wizard, specify the read option, uncheck the option for read timestamp, and then I'll copy it to clipboard, and I'll put that right into cell A4. And we see that we get the return value of 1. Now let's put in a different value of 12.34. There we get a return value of 2 in the write, and now we get the returned value back being read. Let's specify a different value of 1.2341. That is within the allowable deadband, so that we see that a write actually doesn't need to occur, and we get the return value indication that it is successful, that there is no value that needs to be written. If we come here and specify a tighter deadband under topic 4, we see that a write is now pending, and we get the return value back. You can also use cell values for any of the other parameters in the RTD formulas. Let's go back up to the ramp signal, and instead of specifying ramp.value, we'll specify a cell location. First, let me copy ramp.value out and put that into the cell B1. That's going to now be our argument for what tag we want to read. There we'll specify the topic 1 as B1. And now we're basically reading the value of whatever ramp.value is. Now let's change the value of B1 to be sign.value. We'll hit return, and now we are monitoring the value of sign.value into the location A1. So you can see the formulas are very adaptable to be arguments of any cell value that you would like it to be. Back to the write function, you notice that topic 5 can be used to either disable or enable the write. So you can start off by making that a cell location. Let's make that C3 as the parameter. Whenever C3 is 0, the write will be disabled. We'll put in a value to write of a value of 10. You notice that the value isn't being written right now because the enable to write is currently set to 0. Now when we set this cell value to 1, we enable the write, we get a return value of 2, and then we get the feedback that the value is now 10. And now we can disable it, and we see that we are now static, and that no matter what the cell value is in B3, nothing will be written. So with this parameter, you can set up Microsoft Excel workbooks to do recipe downloads, and then do a validation that the values have been successfully downloaded to your controller, and use the read formulas to basically store the values of whatever's currently existing in the controller. If you have implemented security to restrict what tags can be read from client application in your OPC system service, then we can implement the RTD formula security. First, let me set up an example to restrict the ability to read values from the OPC system service. I'll do that with the Configure OPC Systems application. We have another training video on how to set up security for security groups and users. I'll do this by specifying Configure Security, first to set up the security groups. I'll select the default group, and then I'll put in a new group name called Admin, and I'll add that to the security configuration. With this, I'll have all features enabled, so the admin group will have full privilege. Under the default group, I'm going to uncheck the enable all features and then go into the read tags function and disable all tags from reading. When I select apply changes, now when I come back to my Excel worksheet, I see that the value qualities are bad. Let me come in and set this default return value when the default quality is bad back to a question mark, so it's a little bit easier to see. So we can see not only can we not read values, but we cannot read the values to do the proper write confirmation as well. So now let me go back and set up a user that I can specify to get back to the admin level. We'll go to Configure Users. I'll put in a username of capital A and a password of capital B, and then specify the security group of admin and add that to the configuration. Now with the OPC Excel wizard, I have the security radio button selected, and there we see we have the username. We'll put in capital A and the password of capital B. And then we have another parameter, which is to enable the login, or if that's unchecked, we'll be logging off of the service. We'll copy that to the clipboard. Now I'll paste that into cell A5 or any cell that I would like. You only need one login per Microsoft Excel workbook, and you can hide that. It is important to hide this cell location and protect possibly the worksheet that you're hiding it within, because we are exposing the password here in the RTD formula. So to hide a row, just select the row, right click on it, and select hide, and then you can go to protect the workbook. Go Tools, Protection, Protect Sheet. Let's unhide that, and if we specify in topic 5 a value of 0 instead of 1, we would be logging off of the system, and we see the return value is that we're currently logged off. Go back in, put a value of 1, and that will log the system back in for the proper privilege. So you can see that by implementing that as a cell value, you can have an easy log in, log off system right in your Excel workbook. Let's go back to the Configure application and remove the restriction for reading tags. Select the Configure Security tab, go back to the default security group, and check the option to enable all features and apply changes. Now there will be no security restriction for any of the properties of the local service. If you also wanted to connect directly to OPC servers, you can use the Direct OPC interface. Let's go back and specify to read a value, but this time when we're browsing tags, we'll specify the top option for Direct OPC, and then we'll simply select an item directly on that OPC server. Let's select this flow signal, and we see that the RTD formula now includes the direct OPC arguments. Here under the direct OPC interface, we can specify what is the data type that we want to do. The default is an object type, so it can be any type of value. We'll specify a double float, and you can also specify the OPC update rate right here. The OPC access path, of course, is optional, and it's only required for those OPC servers that are old DDE servers that need to be converted to OPC servers for the topic name. And then we can either keep the item on scan when the value is no longer needed in the worksheet, or if it's unchecked, it will take the scan off of the OPC server anytime that none of the remote clients are accessing data for this item. We'll keep the default of keep OPC item on scan. We'll now copy that to the clipboard. We'll paste that into the Microsoft Excel worksheet, and there we get the return value for that item. So that put a subscription directly on an OPC server without creating an OPC Systems.net tag. For more information on Direct OPC, view the data source video that also describes calculations in OPC Systems.net tags and how to set up OPC Systems.net tags and other data sources like databases and .NET applications. So now that we have the data in Microsoft Excel, we can use the write function to basically trend any value out of Microsoft Excel. Let's do that. I'm going to use the Configure OPC Systems application and select Configure Tags, select the local service, add a new group called My Values, scroll down to select My Values, right-click on it, and add a tag called My Data. In My Data, what we'll do is we'll specify to enable the trend feature. Notice we can also set up alarm limits. So from Microsoft Excel, you could do data logging, you could set alarm notifications, you can send emails when the value in the Excel workbook exceeds a certain limit. All of the features of OPC Systems.net can now use Microsoft Excel as a data source. We're going to leave the data source value here as a fixed value. If we wanted to write it down to an OPC server like we did earlier, we would specify this as OPC item. So we'll have a default value of 0. Now we'll go back to the OPC Excel wizard. We'll hit the select button to refresh the tag list, and now we have a new group called My Values with a new tag called My Data. We'll select that, and we'll specify to write a value, and the cell location that we're going to use is B7. So whatever value is in B7 is what we will end up writing. So we'll copy that to the clipboard, paste that formula into Microsoft Excel. We see that we can't properly typecast the value to be written because it's something that doesn't exist. So we'll put in a value of 1. And now we see that a write is pending and that the value is now 1. So if we come back to look at the Configure OPC Systems application, the value of 1 is now in the value field. So now let's add that trend point into a trend application. I'm just going to use the default dashboard application. I'm going to go down to the trend feature and add a new pen. There we have the new group My Values with My Data. Right click, add that trend point, and we'll set it up with a new color. Of yellow. And a line style of tube. And we'll click OK. There we see the value being trended. Its current value is 1. So if we come back to Microsoft Excel, enter a new value, say of 50. We'll go back to the trend application, and we'll see that that new trend value is now 50. And that's in the back part of this trend window. So this is just to demonstrate that you can use Microsoft Excel as a data source for all of the product features of the OPC Systems.net suite. We can also connect to remote OPC system services, even over the internet. Let's go back to the OPC Excel wizard, and let's put in a network node name of www.opcsystemserver.com. We'll hit the select button, and now we're browsing tags on a remote service over the internet. This service has OPC values being hosted from a system in Texas that you can then connect all over the world. I'll go down and select the ramp value. I'll specify to read that value and then copy that to the clipboard. Now let's paste that into the cell location A8. We are now getting the return value of the ramp value from that system in Texas. So you can see your Excel workbooks can be deployed remotely using your local area network or the internet and connect to an OPC system service as a data source. So the OPC system service runs as a Windows service connecting to the OPC servers there locally, and then networking is just simply using a TCP connection over TCP port 58723, like all of the remote client product features do. So let's clear out some of these. So let's clear out some of this, and let's set up just 3 values to display. I'll go back to my Excel wizard application, and I'll specify to monitor the local service, and I'll select the ramp signal for reading. I'll put that into A1. Go back to the OPC Excel wizard. I'll select random as a second argument. And as a third value to monitor, I'll monitor the value sine 2. I know this value has a range of 0 to 100 like the other two have. So now I can use these values in any kind of function that I would like to do. I can sum the values up. Maybe I want to use the values in a chart. Select the range of cells that I want to put in a chart. Maybe I'll use a pie chart to compare the values to each other. And there in the Excel worksheet, I see that the pie chart is updating from the live values from those cell locations. So if you have more questions on the product feature opcxl.net or any of the other product features of the full OPC Systems.net suite, please visit us at opcsystems.com. There you can find where you can download the software under the Downloads link, view additional training videos under the Training link, and under the Sales page you'll find the contact information for open automation software and your local representative.